The world of work is changing fast. To stay ahead, businesses need to be able to attract the best and most ambitious and diverse talent in locations around the world and on more flexible terms than ever before. Magnit says they have the expertise, intelligence, and technology to manage international dynamic workforces. My name is Rosanna Lockwood, and I'm in Davos, where I sat down with the company's CEO and CMO to find out how they're doing this. Hi there, good morning. Kevin Ackroyd, CEO of Magnit.
Good morning.
Vidya Srinivasan, CMO of Magnit. It's wonderful to have you both here with us in beautiful Davos, Switzerland. We might get some sunshine a bit later on. How does it feel being here in Switzerland?
Fantastic.
Good.
Yeah,
good.
Great to be here.
It's a long journey for you guys from the West Coast. Do you find yourself coming to Europe much?
Yes, at least once a quarter, right?
Yeah.
We've got a pretty big footprint in Europe. So one of the two of us, if not both of us, are here 4 or 5 times a year.
Okay, wonderful.
Happily.
Let's find out what you're doing in Europe then, happily. Tell us a bit, Kevin, about what Magnit is, what you do.
Sure. Most people don't know that in the global world of workers, that almost half of them now are actually not full-time. So in a very simple world, if you want to divide the world of workers to full-time employees versus non-full-time employees, that's literally 50-50. And while for the full-time employee, there has been decades of very large service companies and very large software companies and analytics companies and data companies that have satisfied an enterprise's needs to manage their full-time employee base. 10 years ago, contingent was 10-15% of the work. Now all of a sudden it's 50%. That's basically what Magnit has gone and developed. So we are that system of record or that platform that'll help a large Global 2000 enterprise manage hundreds of thousands of contingent workers, and we provide that data, that software, the analytics, the services, et cetera, to help a large enterprise manage a global workforce on the contingent side, not on the FTE side.
There's been a huge shift given the pandemic, probably ripe for opportunity for you. I'll come back to that because
Sure.
I want to learn a bit more about Magnit, the company itself. Vidya, talk to us a little bit about the journey the company's been on, a new name, in fact, as well.
Yeah. So as Kevin said, we've been a pioneer in contingent workforce management space for over 3 decades. The one thing I think was consistent with Magnit has been the fact that we've consistently innovated over the past few years and over the past 3 decades. And what we were as Pro Unlimited, which was our previous name, was no longer a reflection of who we are today or who we've become and who we aspire to be, which is really helping companies sort of reimagine their talent supply chain. And that's a huge huge challenge for companies, and we are here to help them. And we feel Magnit, the name as it stands, is truly a reflection of really helping companies attract the right talent to the right opportunity.
Talk to us about what the pandemic looked like for you as somebody in this space and the sort of shifts and trends you've noticed.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like to say, first and foremost, the pandemics didn't create this, right? The world was going from full-time employees in the company's office to remote, global, non-full-time employees everywhere around the world. That was happening anyway. This isn't actually being driven by the companies. This has actually been driven by the workers. Vidya is this mid-20s, really strong part-time engineer. She's got 10 companies that are begging to pay her 150 euros an hour. She will only work that 9-month contract, and she's going to go skiing for 3 months. And when she comes back off the hill, she's going to have 9 companies lined up begging to pay her that 150 euro hour again. So you've got, and a lot of people like to use cute names like digital natives or, all that, the Gen, Zers, that won't take full-time jobs. They will only take contingent jobs because they want the flexibility, and the enterprise is more than willing to compensate them. The companies have cared about a long time on the full-time employee side and kind of ignored on the contingent side. They can't ignore that anymore. So all the DE&I and stuff like that is important too. So those are some of the biggest trends that are driving the enterprise to have to take a new innovative approach to this.
I hear that it's an employees market now,
It is.
more than ever before. That
It is.
supply and demand thing,
Yeah.
it's completely shifted. Let's talk about where Magnit fits in that space then, because workforce management platforms, not a new thing. There's a lot out there. It's a very crowded landscape. So how do you guys mark yourselves out differently?
I think the first thing is to recognize whether it's on the services side, like an Accenture or Deloitte or Capgemini, they only do the full-time side. Whether it's the software giants like Workday or Oracle or SAP, they only do the full-time side, whether it's the big payroll and employer of record, folks like ADP or Ceridian, only the FTE side, and the large data companies that sell data to edify what you should pay a full-time employee. So the first thing that Magnit represents is finally a platform play that can bring that services, software, employer of record, and data robustness and bring the same kind of platform capability to the 50% that's contingent, because the whole industry that sort of satisfied the full-time employee just ignored the contingent piece. So first and foremost, we fill that gap.
Every function, whether it's marketing, IT, sales, are all working with their own vendor to hire these ICs, right, independent contractors, and there's no visibility, right? So you as a C-level executive has no idea what's going on outside of the FTE pool. And I think it's a huge opportunity for us to take it to the broader set of enterprise companies out there.
So thinking a bit more about that messaging and how you position Magnit, talk to me a little bit, Vidya, about sort of innovation in the company, staying ahead. How are you able to sort of peg Magnit as being a leader in specific fields?
Kevin and I both come from IT SaaS companies in our background. So we are used to working with analysts like the Gartners and the Forresters of the world, who do a fantastic job of education, awareness, and also publishing who's who in the industry, right? Who's the leader? Who can you rely on? Fortunately for us, there's not been much activity with some of the big analysts, but we've been, over the past few years, really investing time with some of our boutique analysts in the staffing space to really help drive education and awareness. But the most important thing is the voice of the customer and validation from the analysts, validation from our clients. And we are proud to, state that all our staffing analysts in the market today have rated us as number one. The fact that the top Fortune 5 are our clients today, and we are working with a ServiceNow or a Ceridian to help drive that integration of contingent into the broader organization is a huge testament to the fact that companies are starting to look at contingent in the context of the broader total talent and are recognizing us as a leader in the industry to help drive that within organizations.
Now that we pulled that off, companies can finally, for the first time, look across their full-time world and their contingent world, and this notion of total talent intelligence, managing the whole thing, finally is not a unicorn or fairy dust. It can actually happen for the first time. And if you're a head of HR, right, or a chief financial officer in one of these large Fortune 500 companies that we serve, that's being viewed as real innovation. So it's pretty exciting for the clients that we serve.
They get that message. We've talked a lot about the clients and the business side of it, but let's concentrate on the talent for just a moment, because you said there, quiet quitting, the great resignation, the power is in the hand of the employees for once, but it's still a pretty tough market out there, especially for the talent professionals, those recruiting as well. So what advice can you give them in terms of selecting the right candidates, the candidates putting themselves forward in the right way? You guys are in the forefront of it. So
I think the first advice is, unlike the full-time side, the recruiter, the whole line of business got very data and analytical driven. So one, use your tools. The data, the analytics, the predictive, all that stuff is out there for the non-full-time recruiter, just like it is in the full-time. They just need to actually utilize it. Second, it's not just about the job or the paycheck. It's, well, what about the perks? What about this? What about the flexibility? What about that? And companies that have put decades into making world-class employee experience have not put any of that towards their contractors or their freelancers, yet they're the ones that are in demand, right? So companies have got to focus, on the worker experience. And then finally is, you've got to realize that you are going through a disintermediary for the most part. And that's one thing that I hope we can key on a little bit more is the vast majority of this contingent work will, the enterprise will actually call through a staffing agency. So the employer doesn't have a relationship with the talent. They've got a relationship with the staffing agency. So for a company that is hiring 100,000 contingent workers a year and spending $2 billion US dollars in this example, there's literally $400 or $500 million just in paying this intermediary and not having a relationship with the talent. So that's probably the biggest one, is there's no need to go through the middleman anymore.
Just to round off this conversation, let's remind ourselves where we are. Fantastic. Davos, Switzerland, of course, the setting for the World Economic Forum, many years in a row. we know what that's about. It's world leaders coming together, trying to solve the most pressing issues. This year, they've got this sort of broad theme, cooperation in a fragmented world, to try and stop this sort of decade of inactivity, as they call it. Let's talk a bit about cooperation in your industry and why it's important. Vidya, I'll come to you first.
Sure. For us, especially as this industry gets more and more visibility in education, and contingent becomes more than half of what an organization is, it's all about cooperation and collaboration, whether it's within the organization, across the leaders, the C-suite, whether it's working with suppliers, your ecosystem, right, to ensure that you're finding the right talent. You're talking about the supply chain. So imagine all the nodes in the supply chain that you need to collaborate with, getting all of them together, partnering with them, so that ultimately we can streamline that relationship for the end client in a very smooth manner. So I think part of it is also us leaning in as the leaders in the industry to really help drive that awareness, so we can do a better job at education, but more importantly, drive this collaboration bottoms up, so that effectively we can drive that change for a total talent strategy. Kevin, anything else to add?
No, agreed. It's such a fragmented, in case we haven't said that enough, it's so fragmented. Tech network like an Upwork, the talent themselves, the technology providers like us, and our surrounding tech ecosystem, so many moving pieces and parts to pull off an effective, innovative talent strategy that captures this new reality. Now that I'm facing this world, I've got to get super fluent in that collaboration, that teamwork, otherwise I'm just not going to be able to do it.
You're not going to be part of the party.
That's right, exactly.
Kevin Ackroyd, CEO of Magnit.
Thank you.
Vidya Srinivasan, CMO of Magnit. It's been fantastic talking to you, learning a bit more about contingent workforce, what Magnit does in this space. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.